Good afternoon, and welcome to the 548th of our series of Distinguished Speaker programs. I'm Barney Bishop, and I have the pleasure and the honor of serving as your club president this year. Our introducer of our guest speaker today, and he'll conduct a fireside chat with our speaker in a few moments. But let me introduce him now, Doug Wheeler. Doug most recently served as president and CEO of the Florida Ports Council, a nonprofit corporation that serves as the professional association for Florida's 15 deep water seaports in their management. He has since formed his own firm called D. Wheeler Strategies, which is a full-service public affairs firm providing strategic counseling services for local, state, and federal governments. He also offers brand and business development, communications, strategic planning, operational management.
Lutoff-Perlo, one of the few American women who is a current CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. She's literally a trailblazer in the global hospitality industry. That includes both the marine side as well as the hotel side. She is a recognized driving force behind transforming and really redefining today's what they call new luxury cruise experience. She is an expertise in building demand, unparalleled brand vision, and award-winning guest service. Celebrity, no doubt, has one of the best reputations in the industry, and a real innate ability to put together high-performing, culturally inclusive teams that reach a high level of success. She took the helm as president and CEO of Celebrity Cruise Lines. That's a Royal Caribbean cruise line company in 2014, and truly led that company through an unprecedented era of growth. They have introduced under her leadership a new series of vessels known as the Edge, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that vessel shortly. She's helped that company achieve historic levels of guest satisfaction, and they've won hundreds of top industries awards, both for innovation as well as service. So please join me in welcoming our guest, Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, the president and CEO of Celebrity Cruise Lines. Let me give you a minute to just say, make some welcoming comments or opening comments.
Sure, thank you. It's so nice to be with all of you today, even though virtually. I know many of us are used to that by now, but it's still not ideal. And I really appreciate being asked to speak today. Sorry I couldn't be there with you in person. I will do my absolute best to make this fireside chat as wonderful and intimate as possible, even though I'm not there in person. So, and I'm honored to be among this illustrious group, and I'm sorry you're all sweating. I see that it's warm in there, and so hopefully this will be interesting and it will get your mind off of that.
Yeah, none more than me. I'm going to get another picture. Well, Lisa, it's great that you can join us, and logistically, challenges or not, it's great that you can join us today, and I know we're looking forward to a great discussion. So why don't we get started? Just tell us a little bit about Celebrity Cruises, right? The brand, because I know that is so key, perhaps more than some of the other cruise lines, that Celebrity's brand. Who are your customers? Why? And then maybe tell us a little bit about what makes Celebrity different from the other cruise lines, including even some of the other Royal lines in the parent company.
Well, thank you for the question. I'll try to do it justice, and I'm not sure if there are any cruisers in the crowd, or celebrity cruisers, but I certainly hope at some point in time we will give our industry and certainly our brand a try. You know, Celebrity has, over the last 7 years, we've really worked hard to carve out a nice niche for ourselves. It's called New Luxury. We really straddle, we're slightly underneath ultra luxury, which are very small ships, but also a nice step above premium cruise lines that some of you might know out there. We've taken an approach that we focus on 5 things that we believe are very important to our guests around the beautiful design of our ships. They're like boutique hotels, and we hire world-class world-renowned designers, and we might talk a little bit about that as we talk about the Edge series. Culinary, we are the culinary brand. We're highly awarded for that. We've won more Wine Spectator awards awards than anybody else in the industry, and we're the first to win certain awards from them for best of, which they really don't give to the cruise industry. Where we go is really important to our guests, but also how we take them into the places that we visit and engage with the local communities and make them better for having been there versus just bringing our guests in and dropping them off and then taking them away. Service, again, is really at the top of the list of everything that we provide. We're the first cruise line to be verified for luxury, if you will, by Forbes, and that's a really important distinction. And to your point earlier through that really lovely introduction, thank you, we also build our brand on a foundation of purpose, and we try to make the world a better place while we're also offering these great modern and new luxury vacations. Our target, our affluent customers, we primarily focus on the Boomer and Gen X market. We do a lot of segmentation and data gathering around those two markets, and we've really built our brand in a lovely and strong way over the last few years. And before this terrible pandemic that affected the entire planet happened, we had achieved some pretty transformational financial results, and I'm looking forward to reinvigorating that in the very near future.
Yeah, we're gonna get to some of that pandemic stuff here in a little bit, but and you mentioned, and I had a note to mention, I did in your intro about the partnerships you've had with the luxury brands, which I think has really helped elevate that sort of new luxury that you talked about. So maybe there'll be an opportunity for you to expand on that a little bit with. I'm talking about the luxury brand partnerships that you all have done. Maybe you all can expand on that a little bit with celebrity, but. Okay, so you've kind of given us the background on celebrity. Can you hear me okay, Lisa?
I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
The mic is working, so okay. Let me, how about, is it any better? Can you hear me any better now?
I can hear you better now, thank you.
Okay, let's just keep trying that. So we're just going to move on a little bit. So we know a little bit about celebrity cruise lines. Appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's talk a little bit about, just so we can kind of set the stage as we continue to talk, a little bit about yourself. It's an impressive career, track, the progression that you've had. So talk a little bit about your career, this long and impressive career, and what has traditionally been a man-dominated industry. So a little bit about how you ended up where you are, and then maybe some highlights from along the journey.
It's as you described, as you were doing that lovely introduction, it's been a very long and winding road, and a wonderful career, probably one I never imagined 36 years ago. And I started selling door to door as a district sales manager up in New England, where I'm from. And took my first promotion moving down to Florida back in 1989. And then, progressively worked through sales and then marketing and then operations. And I've also been back and forth between the brands a couple of times. And throughout that journey, I know there's a lot of talk about the fact that I was the first woman to be in the C-suite of our company and run one of our brands. And that is a really lovely distinction. I never thought much about it along the way as a woman, especially when you come from a sales and marketing background. You really don't think about gender at all. But I do acknowledge that when I came into operations, I think it was 2005. For the first time, it was a culture shock, and I understood how male-dominated our industry was, but not only just male-dominated, because I work with amazing men every single day, and the majority of the people that I work with every day are still men, and they're fabulous and wonderful men, but these, the men that I was working with at the time were not very progressive and not very focused on gender equality, and they did not view women as being able or capable, and so as I transitioned into that environment, I knew I had an opportunity to change that, and when I came into this role, I knew I really had an opportunity to do that because it really does, influence does matter, and your ability to control certain environments and bring along like-minded people is that much greater when you have a position like I have. So I decided that I was going to use the fact that I was the first woman in this role and that it was bringing so much focus and attention to me in that regard that I was going to use it mostly to elevate and bring other women along with me. And I think I've done a pretty decent job of that over the last 7 years, and I have a lot of great men to thank for all the progress that we've made.
That's great, and we're going to drill a little bit into some of the work relative to, I think the stat I used was from 3 to 27% in terms of the women on the bridge and just in the corporation, and just your employee culture anyway, so we'll get into that a little bit as well. Okay, so this pandemic, right? No sale order, shut down, literally, nothing is happening in the cruise industry. Give us some insight into guiding Celebrity through what has been just an unprecedented challenge. If you want to talk a little bit about some of the finance side of that, but also let's talk some about how it's affected some of the company's employees, whether that's the folks that work for, on land, or those that are at sea as well, which come from all over the world, by the way. So share some of your thoughts on that.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. And that's a lot. And I reflect quite often on the last 16 months, as you can all imagine. It has been an unprecedented time for the world. It's been an unprecedented time for our country. It's been an unprecedented time for our industry. Throughout my career, I never thought our industry would shut down, and certainly never because of a global pandemic. But that's sort of where we found ourselves 16 months ago. And as we thought about how to come back, first of all, we had to think about how to shut down, get all of our guests and our crew home. That took months. And a lot of that was based on not so much our own issues, but even the countries that we were repatriating our crew to. As you just mentioned, they're from 70 or 80 different countries, and we were dealing with global governments, and our guests couldn't even get home. Their countries wouldn't even take them home. And some of our guests lived on one of our ships for months before we could get them home to Colombia, actually. So it was an unbelievable experience, and we learned so much, and I hope we've all come out of this in a better place than we were for a lot of different reasons. Mostly, I would say, as it relates to leading a company or a brand through such a situation where at the very beginning you're so uncertain about what's going to happen and when you're going to get back in business, and every time you thought you were, something else happened, and the no sale order was extended. People were starting to get concerned. They were uncertain about their own future. They were uncertain about the industry, including myself on some days. And what I learned about being a leader during that time was that you really had to find a way to motivate. At Celebrity, it's 20,000 employees, but not just the employees at Celebrity. Our company has like 90,000 employees all over the world, and you needed to keep your crew motivated in all these different countries with constant communication and letting them see you and hear you through video and apps so that they could feel your energy and have hope that they were going to come back. And I'll get to that in a minute, because I've been on a couple of the ships and I just can't tell you how wonderful it is to see how happy and grateful our crew is. It's heartwarming. And for me, that was listen, it's well reported that this industry has had to borrow billions and billions of dollars to stay afloat, pardon my very bad pun, and that we have to now pay this back over a period of time, and we didn't expect to have to do that. And so it's certainly wonderful to be back in business for that, so that we can start seeing our way through this really difficult time. But for me, it's always been about the people and being just so grateful that we've been able to bring them back. And I've learned a lot about myself during this time. I've learned a lot about what it takes to be a great leader during this time. And I've taken, I've really spent a lot of time focusing our team on the future versus the terrible situation that we have been in on any given day. And then just to finish up on the point, I don't want to go on about it too long. I think our company did all the right things Not only in terms of how we took care of our guests and our crew, but also how we thought about coming back into service. And putting together this healthy sail panel and working with experts in the field about what are the things we should be thinking about so that we actually can get back into service and work closely with the CDC to ensure that our environment is safe and healthy and just continue to maniacally focus on that. I think it was the reason that we have been able to come back and to be able to come back so successfully, and also in many cases for Celebrity to be the first to come back. And so I would say that just like every other thing our company has done in the 36 years that I've been with this company, we've gone above and beyond, and we have led the industry in a way that has made it possible to finally be back in business, which I have to say feels really good.
It should, and that's no easy feat. Congratulations to you and all the team and really all the cruise lines. A lot of people don't realize the trickle down. At my time at the council, we were hearing, the agriculture industry was beginning to feel the pinch that, these cruise lines or the provisioners were not buying these massive amounts of tomatoes and, peppers and all these fruits that go with, a weekly cruise that come and go every week, at 6 or 7 ports around the entire state, the country. And so, you start to really realize it's not just the cruise lines that are feeling this, but it's all the people that are tied to that industry. And that second tier, if you want to call it, indirect or direct, is just a massive community in Florida in particular. And they certainly were feeling the downturn effects as well. So, job well done, and I'm sure it feels really, really good to start seeing vessels out there cruising around. And I know,
if you don't mind, if I could address that for a moment, because you're absolutely right. The downstream impact of our industry being out of business, all of our friends in the ports who have supported us over time, whether it's the port directors or the port offices, and seeing their revenues impacted so significantly. The stevedores, they're so happy to be back to work. Our guests are so happy to be cruising again, and they're talking to the folks that have been out of work for so long, asking them, what does it feel like to finally be back to work? And, the tears, everybody's crying. Stevedores are crying, the captains are crying, the guests are crying, the crew is crying. It's been, and all of our suppliers who provision our ships, it's really been hard. And this industry was hit terribly hard. The state was hit terribly hard. And the economic impact of Florida was significant, and we're just glad that it's finally on its way back. And slowly but surely, every week, more and more cruises are starting up again. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's slow but steady.
Yeah, absolutely. Our members may have seen last week the governor was able to award some federal stimulus money to several of our seaports as sort of a revenue replacement or a supplement to some of the revenue losses. So that's certainly a big boost. And then, of course, now that we have the vessels sailing again, I know our ports are also really excited. So, look, there's still a lot of uncertainties, probably endless scenarios of, what if, and what if this, and what if that. But I know we have cruisers in the audience. Let's take a good bit of time. Let's really, because I want, it's so key that, right, I read a quote today that said, cruisers are going to cruise, right? So we know that the people that cruise, they're ready. They want to cruise, they love it, but they need to be assured. And then that huge market that's not been on a cruise right now needs to be convinced, hey, come experience this, but come experience it safely. So take some time to walk through some of the protocols that we're going to see relative to boarding. I know there's new queuing processes, reboarding after excursions, testing, proof of vaccination requirements, which I know is a little tricky issue right now, but cleaning processes, right? I'm assured buffets will exist, you just won't serve yourself, right? So if you want 16 pieces of bacon, you gotta ask for 16 pieces of bacon, but you can still have it. So spend some time, and then I want to close with that, take some time, but then I also want to get to the point that I think a lot of people are curious about. So I'm on a cruise, we've set sail on day 2, somebody on the ship tests positive for the COVID virus. what happens to that person, and how does that might that affect the rest of the passengers? So I know that's a lot, but let's take some time, take your time, and let's see if we can't get through some of this and assure people that cruising is safe right now.
Oh wow, you really do load me up, don't you? But that's okay. All right, let me try to wrap my head around that and start and where I hope it makes sense. So yes, when this first happened, we were very concerned that the first-time cruise market was going to take forever to get back. And, you know, we, as you can imagine, we do take a lot of time and spend a lot of energy gauging consumer sentiment, how they're feeling at any given time about anything. And we did that at the very beginning, and we just continue to do that all the way through to where we are today. We will continue to do it. And, you know, it will be no surprise to anybody in the room that from where we were to where we are light years, you know, we're at pre-pandemic levels of consumer confidence, which is really good to see. And those consumers are cruisers and non-cruisers. So it's general population, because we really need to understand what the general population is thinking. What's been really interesting for me is I have watched our brand start up again and ask about the specifics about the people that are on the ships. You would think it's all past cruisers, and it isn't. And I think one of the reasons that it isn't, and one of the reasons, I was just on Celebrity Edge with 14 of us. It was our first, you know, family cruise. It was just a couple of weeks ago, and I was really surprised at the number of first-timers. And it's because they know what we're doing on board to keep them safe. You know, our chairman has always said we want to make sure that the public understands that cruise ship is safer than Main Street. And right now, a cruise ship is safer than Main Street. We have, you know, if you look at the entire population of a celebrity ship right now, 99% of the people are vaccinated. 100% of our crew are vaccinated, and no less than 95% of our guests are vaccinated. That is how we're operating, and that's how we will continue to operate. And so people feel, and no one ever said there would not be a case on board. That's unrealistic, and it's not going to happen. I mean, you know, we all are watching what's going on in Florida right now. And so the thing is, though, people understand that, but they also know that the environment they're in is very safe. And, you know, if you think about those 16 pieces of bacon, it's really good on our food cost because our crew is actually serving. And so they'll give 3 or 4, but not 16. So maybe that will help us on the cost side. But, you know, it's for us at Celebrity, it's lovely because, you know, we're always serving our guests. And so it's probably a nicer experience to be served versus serving yourself. And so while there are a few of those nuances, the experience is a wonderful experience on Celebrity because of the very high vaccination rate. And again, working in conjunction with CDC, we're voluntarily following all of their recommendations, and the guests do not have to wear masks, so their experience is not compromised. We are now, because of the Delta variant, also not only requiring proof of vaccination, but also a negative test and a general PCR when you come to the pier, just as an added level of certainty that people aren't bringing this onto the ship. And we have had some cases. Celebrity Millennium was the first ship to sail out of North America, out of St. Martin, and on that very first cruise we had a positive case. But that case is quickly identified. Close contacts are quickly identified. We do contact tracing. We test everyone. They've all been negative. And we fly that person home we medevac them home. And so we have not had a situation where this has turned into anything other than 1 or 2 cases on board. And the ships are handling them very well. The sanitation protocols are second to none. Our medical facilities have all been upgraded. So it's really a very, very healthy and safe environment on board. And while we will have the few cases, they're being handled exactly the way they need to be, and the protocols are all working. So again, if you think about 3,000, the population of 3,000 or 4,000 people on a ship between crew and guests, and you see 1 or 2 breakthrough cases from a pretty much fully vaccinated population, I think that's those statistics are pretty good.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So as they disembark and embark from excursions, they're not being retested as they reboard the vessel, or they are. If they get off to go to into the town for the day, and now they're coming back, we're sailing out tonight. Is it because they've already produced a negative test and been vaccinated that they're not required to take another test, or would they be tested again before they can reboard?
So you do not, if you're sailing out of a U.S. port with 95% or greater vaccination rate of your guests, you are not required to test people before they get on the ship, or before they get off the ship, or when they get on or off in a port of call. We have chosen, again, to go above and beyond compliance, if you will, or recommendations, just to continue to provide the safest environment possible. We have asked our guests, based on the Delta variant, to please also not only come with proof of vaccination, but also a negative PCR or antigen test. And that is the only test that will happen on the cruise for that guest out of a U.S. port. It's different if guests are flying to Athens, for example, to board our Celebrity Apex. Greece requires a negative PCR test, and we do test our guests before they get off the ship 48 hours in advance so that they can fly home, because it is still required to fly home to have a negative test. And the same for St. Martin. So it really depends on where you're going. So as you can imagine, as I'm talking through all of this and you're sitting in the audience, you're thinking, holy crap, that's a lot to keep track of, that's a lot to enforce, those are a lot of protocols that vary wherever you are in the world. So we are navigating, again, I'm sorry for the very bad pun, a lot right now, but it's still, it's really still worth it. We're able to provide people much needed vacations. There's a lot of pent-up demand out there, and it's really helping us get back into service in a really big way for 2022 to be starting up and having this much success all over the world.
It's great. It's great to see the amount of bookings. I mean, business is really, really strong right now, so it's great. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and let's hope that these protocols in place that you briefly mentioned, I forget the name of it, but I know that Royal put together a team of doctors and health experts and hospitality experts that kind of come up with. So we'll hope that these new protocols based in science and medicine and so forth will prove to be effective. Okay, so moving on a little bit, I do want to give you another chance to just talk about why, and you hit on it a little bit, but you have really made it part of your one of your priorities, I guess, not only from the female sector, just getting more women in the business, and clearly celebrity is leading that front. And I think the Kate and Q, I think her name is, story is a great story. Can you hear me?
A little bit, yeah. I'm sorry. It's can you? I don't know if maybe you put it closer.
Okay, I'll try during the days of COVID. But okay, yeah. So we're just trying to give you a little more opportunity to expand on, why you as a professional have felt so compelled to not only make sure that you're being inclusive of women and their role in this industry, but you focus a lot on cultural inclusivity and gender equality issues, and making sure that the culture that you create is inclusive and supportive. And so talk a little bit about why that's so important to you, and talk about some of those successes.
Thank you for that question. It is important to me for a lot of different reasons. Diversity and inclusion in general are really important to me. I talked a little bit about the gender side of when I came into operations, but what I also have really appreciated about our industry, especially leading the operation and leading so many different people from so many different parts of the world, I grew up this way, believing in equality and believing in diversity and believing in inclusion. But it really hit home for me in our industry when I look at 80 cultures on our ships coming from different parts of the world, They are different colors, they are different genders, they have different sexual orientations, they have different religious beliefs. And they come onto these ships as strangers, and they very quickly become family. And they're taking care of each other, and they're taking care of our guests. And I thought, you know, I think the world could learn a lot from cruise ships in that regard as well. But I also gained a whole new appreciation for that. And I also gained an appreciation for the fact that there were so very few women in positions of influence and leadership on board our ships. And so as I thought about how to ensure that our brand, not only for the consumers, was a very welcoming place, so that guests who were booking vacations knew that they would be comfortable and respected on a celebrity cruise. And so that's certainly part of our platform and something that I stand for and our brand stands for. And you know, we're not shy about talking about that. And when I was on Celebrity Edge, I think it hit me for the first time how really diverse our guest mix was, and it was just a beautiful thing to see. In terms of gender equality, you know, I'll give you just a couple of quick examples. You talked about it in the introduction. When I was first appointed to this position in December of 2014, one of the things that I knew it was really important for me to do as the first woman and CEO in our company for one of our brands was to find a woman for captain. And it's not easy, you know, I know we talk about those percentages, and maybe for the audience to think about 2%, that's horrifying. We were at 3%, but it's not easy to go from 3% to almost 30% in 5 or 6 years, because the number of women were opting into these roles and professions it's very small. You know, if you look at the maritime universities and the engineering schools, you still have very few women in them. Maritime universities, maybe 10% of the student body are women, and maybe 7% get all the way through graduation. So the pool that you're drawing from is not very, very big. But I was very fortunate to meet Captain Kate at Royal Caribbean. She's a staff captain. She was a staff captain for 9 years. I met her. I realized she was very special. I even then though didn't realize how very special she is. And one of the first things I did was call her and say, Kate, would you join me at Celebrity as a captain? What was really interesting and disappointing to me is she had been a staff captain at Royal Caribbean for 9 years and was the top-rated staff captain 13 contracts in a row. And I always say everything happens for a reason. And she wasn't promoted at Royal Caribbean, but I reached out and her answer was hell yes. And she was the first American woman to be the captain of a mega cruise ship. And believe it or not, she's still the only one, 6 years later. So we've worked with maritime academies around the world and hired women in entry-level positions so we could groom them and promote them over time. We have a woman captain in the Galapagos, and we have a woman staff captain, Maria from Spain. We have women from all over the world on our beaches now, and on any given ship at any given time, 30% of the bridge team are women.
Lisa, thank you very much for the time. It's been great chatting with you.